Hey guys, this is Michael with MKC Music. I just want to give you all a look at my mastering template in Logic Pro X for 2015. At the beginning of the year, I just like to take a look of things I used a lot, of things that I get rid of, and how it can enhance my workflow. And I feel like templates in general can do that. You just have everything at your fingertips. You get familiar with it, and you just know where things are. I mean, they're already in your go-to settings, and just I think make everything as ready to go and usable as possible. And I think it'll definitely help out your workflow. So just wanted to give you a look into what I'm doing, what stuff that's going on, how things have set up. I think it's not too terribly unusual, but I think there's a couple things that you could maybe learn and see what I'm doing. And right now I'm all in the box and I'm totally cool with it. It's a quick workflow. I think stuff sounds great and I'm very happy with it. So I'm going to be looping a track in the background called Clipped by an artist named Six Synths. And it's a cool kind of neuro glitch track, and I'll have the mastered version of it playing in the outro. But just so we can have audio feeding a few of these things so you can see what things are looking like, especially in these metering plugins at the end. So I'm just going to go down the channel strip, let you see what I'm doing, and then also just a couple things I'm doing with routing. Yeah, so let's get started. So first, I'm going to pull up Perception by Ian Shepard and Meterplex. This is the source plugin, and this is the controller plugin. So basically what this does is anything that's between these two plugins, like in your channel strip, it's going to analyze the loudness difference, either gain you're adding or taking away, and then balance it. And so if I increase 10 dB of gain from the original file to get it up to the loudness that the client wants, it'll tell me that. I click balance and then bring it down to the same reference level. Right now, I have that set at negative 18 dB. That's where I like things to live. It comes standard at negative 16, but I'll explain in a little bit why I like negative 18. But basically, after I balance them, I can hit bypass, and I can hear the unprocessed versus the processed signal in just a click of a button with absolutely no loudness difference. Anything that sounds louder is going to sound usually better. And so this lets me hear an objective comparison between what I'm doing. If I'm squashing it too much, if it needs a little more presence, or just the difference between the original file and what I'm doing to it. Sometimes I need to do a whole lot to the file, sometimes not very much, but this just shows me, lets me hear truly and objectively what I'm doing to it. So next in line, I just have Gain plugin. I use this to make the RMS value of usually the biggest part of the track sit around negative 18. I know I can get files of all volume sizes. Some tracks aren't very loud. Some are usually pretty loud and don't have a whole lot of headroom. But at the end of the very beginning of my session, they're all getting put at negative 18. I do this so any plugins down the line have plenty of headroom. And some of these plugins are analog emulations, and so at some point it was decided by most folks, now this is up for debate, that the equivalent of negative 18 dB in the digital world is around where 0 is in the analog world, and 0 is where most analog equipment is pretty happy as far as the signal coming in and doing its job. So I use this. I use one of my metering plugins on the end to kind of get what the RMS value is of the track, and then just subtract down to get to negative 18. Sometimes I use it to check mono, but most of the time it's just to get it to a decent and workable level within my signal flow for good gain staging. Next, I have the A1 stereo control by Alex Hilton. I basically only use this for the safe bass. If I get a track that doesn't have a very focused low end, or just things are just too spread out, this makes all the frequencies under this set frequency mono, which I think is really handy. If people have gone too crazy with stereo widening on their mix bus or something like that, it can help tame some of the problems that could be happening with the low end. I think it's super handy. I usually don't go above 80 to 100 hertz at most, but it's usually just kind of the sub frequencies I bring down. It has some other cool features which y'all can check out. This plugin is free, but this is just what I use it for. And then next, I use a linear phase EQ. This is the stock linear phase EQ in Logic Pro X. I really like it. I think it sounds good, does its job. This is just a very, I use this on the front end as just kind of a very quick kind of first impressions kind of EQ. I'm usually only about a dB and a half, a dB at most. But if I just hear that, oh man, I really want more sub right off the bat, or just this one frequency in the mid range or just a range of frequencies is bugging me, I'll dip that out and just do a quick comparison to see if that helped. It's just kind of shooting from the hip, getting things done quickly, not spending a whole lot of time here, but just my first impressions. Again, not doing a whole lot, a dB at most, but that's what that does for me. Next, I have Isotope Ozone 6, the whole suite. If you get the advanced version, you can break out the plugins individually, but right now I just have the regular and it does the job for me. I have it right now set up in my template as the mid-side EQ. This preset's called Shepherd 6 because I stole these EQ kind of starting places from Ian Shepherd. I think his home kind of EQ training masterclass is awesome. You should definitely check it out if you want to learn more about EQ. But basically, I have all of these frequency bands set on pivot points. 50, 100, 200, 500, and so on. And these let me find quick places that I kind of know what they sound like, that I can go here and immediately grab a handle and start doing some work and be familiar with what I'm grabbing. I know 500 sounds this way, and that's what I'm hearing with the track, and I can just immediately go and dip something, increase whatever we need to do. It has a lot of really cool controls. I can do shelves, some bell shelves, low band shelves, whatever. It's a really neat plugin. I think it does a great job. Has a couple, you can do like an analog emulation and give you a few different curve shapes. It's great. I'll go into more detail on what the specifics are a lot of these plugins later, but just wanted to give you an overview of what I'm using. And then sometimes I'll use a multi-band compressor just to create some dynamic continuity between the different frequency ranges of a track. And then a harmonic exciter, just if it needs a little more presence or just attitude, I guess. And then stereo imaging. Don't use this a whole lot, but just in case a track needs a little extra focusing or just width. So next is the Ultra Channel by Eventide. This I really only use in mastering for the output transform emulation. I think it does wonderful things to the low end, not for every track, but sometimes it just gives a little bit more meat and depth. And I have the output gain down a little bit just because it does end up adding some gain. I try to keep things around -18 throughout the signal chain until my final limiter as much as possible. So there's that. Then I have the Virtual Mix Rack by Slate Digital. They're doing some great stuff over there. This Revival plugin is basically a harmonic exciter with only 2 knobs, and it's free. You just have to have an iLock, which is awesome. I ended up getting the rest of them because for mixing and other applications, but I like this Neve key for the top end. Usually not doing very much with it, but sometimes things need a little bit more shine. That's where I'll use it. Next, I have the Tokyo Dawn Labs Slick EQ. This is a new one that I'm using. Found out about it from Dave Pensato, and it's really neat. It has some great shells, sounding curves are really natural and warm. It has a few different preset kind of emulations in the way the EQ interacts. And I really like the output stage and how it just gives a little bit of just character, just the beatness, linear, silky, whatever. I know it's just these random adjectives, but it just gives something to the sound. Again, I don't use it on every track, but sometimes it's just what it needs. So this is my starting point for that. And this one's free as well. I can put a link in the blog post notes. Next, I have the Melda Productions Dynamic EQ. This is an awesome little plugin. Basically, I can set the threshold and width of an EQ band, and then whatever's coming into it, I can either reduce, depending how much signal's coming into it, or increase. So I might use this for de-essing on a vocal, and I can just put it on the mid channel and set up some bands here. Or if I will a little bit more sub out of the kick, I can put this band down here, make it more sensitive to that, and it can pump a little bit. It's this plugin is pretty deep. You can do upsampling, just lots of little bells and whistles on it. The more you get into it. So it's a really cool one. You can do a trial on it from Metal Productions website. I would definitely check it out. And then next I have the Waves Twigchild 670. This is a Fairchild emulation. This one is fairly new to me too, but I love it. It just adds some really musical harmonics. I know everyone says that a lot, but something sounding musical, but it just sounds great. It just has a really smooth compression characteristic and just sometimes just a very gentle massaging compression that's really kind of glues some stuff together. But usually I'm not doing a whole lot of compression at all on it, just kind of use it to add a little bit of character and hear it in the circuit that's emulated here. So really cool compressor. And then I have Slates Virtual Bus compressors. Again, 3 more compressors. It's an SSL. I also forgot the name of it, but it's I know Crystal Lord Algae uses it, and then the Verimu compressor. These are all great emulations. Each kind of add their own little different character. Again, only using doing about a dB, maybe 2 at times. Very light compression, but they just add each have their own character that may suit a track or another, and I really like them. Their Slate usually runs a lot of deals, and you can pick it up for fairly cheap. Again, you have to have an iLock, but they're making some great stuff over there. And almost done here with the channel strip, and then I have the Vertigo VC 2. It's from Plugin Alliance, and Brainworks helped them develop this. But this hardware unit, I think, is $6,000, but they decided to make a plugin, and I'm really glad they did. It's an incredible sounding VCA compressor, very natural, great at handling hard transients without squashing them too much. This is kind of my starting point for it. It sounds great. Usually not doing a whole lot of compression here, but it's just sounds awesome. Then last in my chain, I have Isotope Ozone 6 limiter. I usually have my ceiling at -0.5 just so I don't get any inner sample peaks or distortion when things are getting encoded. So I think it sounds great. You can usually get a good bit of gain reduction before you start to hear it working. I don't like squashing things a whole lot, but on those really hard peaks that may just sneak through all the compression, it can really tame them quite well. I like the IRC3 algorithm unbalanced. I can turn transient emphasis on or off if I want a little more click on the front end of stuff and change the character. It's versatile. I can get really any sound I would really want out of a limiter here. I've used it for a while, ever since Ozone 6 came out, and I used Ozone 5 limiter as well. So yeah, that's as far as my processing. And we'll skip over here. I have a pre-main bus, and now I'm going to fire the track so you can kind of see things running through my metering. Okay. And then first I have Roundtrip AAC. This is a plugin that was released with the mastered for iTunes setting. Pretty much you can see, like play your track, tells you where your peaks are, and after all your processing can see if you're getting any inner sample peaks and if there would be after it's encoded. And you can choose your codec, which is really nice. And basically you don't want any peaks after it's encoded or from the source that matter. And I know iTunes is definitely happy when you upload stuff that's not peaking. And I know it has to be under this if you want to be a mastered for iTunes certified mastering engineer. So it's a really handy tool for checking stuff after it goes out the door, a good quality control tool. Another one is free by Voxengo. It's called Span. This is kind of a preset I made to give me just a broad overview of the track, see what's going on. I usually have this sitting in on a different screen, so I can glance on it and see what's going on. It's a great tool, and it's free as well. I always like free stuff. Then I have Brainworks Meter. This gives you a dynamic range reading as well as the RMS and peak values. It's great. Just give me some good information. You can choose a few different filters. The look of it, it's customizable, and I really like it. And then last for metering, I have VU-MT Duo by Klanghelm. This is what I use a lot for my final volume to kind of see where things are hitting at. I usually like to get things after the master to sit around -10 at the loud parts. It can push it sometimes, but that's where I shoot for. But at the very beginning, when I'm testing for RMS levels to run through all my plugins, I put everything at -18. And so I'll use this to see if the meters are hovering around 0. And so obviously this track, the kick is hitting it pretty hard, so skewing that. So I might adjust the gain a little bit when I would go to master this track. So it's really handy. I think this one is €9 or $12 or something like that. It's a steal. And then I've already gone over with you the perception controller. And then next I have Magic AB from Sample Magic. This I'm able to load a preset of tracks, and it just loads it straight into my RAM, so it takes a second to get there. I'm able to flick between the track that I'm working on and a professional track. And I can use these sliders to bring it down and level match. And again, I try to make these match all sit around -18, just so I have a place of reference. I can set a loop area and just load up to 9. And just depending what genre I'm on, I might just have a general preset that has just stuff I'm really familiar with or some popular stuff at the time. So this looks pretty even, and I'll have to listen and see for sure. But it's just a good way to hear what's going on. And then lastly, I have a gain plugin again. I use this for checking mono, just something I have open and can go over here, click, and just hear it in mono, see if there are any issues like that. So you'll see that this pre-main isn't routed straight to the master. I'm sending it to another bus, which is I'm using a program called HD Reference by SonarWorks. This is a plugin that kind of creates a frequency curve depending on your headphone plugin to kind of counteract your headphones inherent curve to them. I use Sennheiser HD 650s when I use headphones, and I like them a lot, and I think they're pretty darn accurate as far as headphones go. But this kind of counteracts the frequency dips in them, and can make things sound, I guess, technically flat. Some people don't like having it's just kind of weird to listen to stuff that's perfectly flat, but it's just a good reference for me to hear what things are sitting at. It's pretty customizable. You can choose your latency, which doesn't, if you make it higher, it works better, which is cool in mastering since we're not tracking anything. You can choose different simulations, so I think it's pretty cool. It's just it's a neat tool. If you're used to one set of headphones and really, really know them very well, this may not be for you, but if you have one that has a frequency curve file that you can load into it and just see what it sounds like, I think it's worth a shot. And so I have my pre-master routed to here, and this is routed out to my headphone out on my interface, but it's also being sent to the stereo out, and that goes to my monitors, so that this plugin, the way it's changing the sound, isn't affecting what's coming out through my main monitors. So I think it's pretty handy. So in here I have 10 channel strips pulled up just because an average album is around that much. So I can just go track 1, load in the first track, track 2, do the same. And I'll usually close this mixer view and then only have the plugins here on the side while I'm working, and can kind of flick around between areas of the track and get to work. Rarely do I have all of these plugins on at once. It's just I have the tools available to me so I can do the work I need. So yeah, that's a very quick, I guess hopefully quick overview of my template and my processing chain for the year. This may tweak some, but I'll just try to see what I can do with these plugins. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll have some more stuff for y'all soon. Thanks.